Welcome to True and Unpolished. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, amuse, and inspire you to create more of a life you'll love. Let's get authentic, everybody. Well, hello there, everybody. Lydia here, bringing you another episode of True and Unpolished. And in today's episode, we have Carrie Graves, who returns to talk to us, this time not about dreams, but about one of our favorite spiritual and psychological tools, the Enneagram. This is such a dense topic. Like you would not believe the amount of information that can be found in the Enneagram. But here today, we just want to kind of touch on it and give you an overall view. When we use words like integration and disintegration, what we really mean is integration is when you become more of your essence and drop your defenses and your coping skills. And disintegration is when you begin to get really armored up and cover up that essence. I know that you're really going to enjoy today's episode, whether or not you have had an introduction to the Enneagram. So we are going to answer the question, Ennea what? And today's episode is brought to you by Cusp Culture. You can visit them online, and they have a shop that actually has some true and unpolished gear. So cuspculture.com/shop. All right, take a listen. Okay, so before we start, I want to read from the Rizzo Hudson text. Okay, so it's Sacred Psychology. One of the profound lessons of the Enneagram is that psychological integration and spiritual realization are not separate processes. Without spirituality, psychology cannot really free us or lead us to the deepest truths about ourselves. And without psychology, spirituality can lead to grandiosity, delusion, and an attempt to escape from reality. The Enneagram is neither dry psychology nor fuzzy mysticism, but a tool for transformation that uses the clarity and insight of psychology as a point of entry into a profound and universal spirituality. Thus, in a literal sense, the Enneagram is the bridge between psychology and spirituality. The core of this sacred psychology is that our basic type reveals the psychological mechanisms by which we forget our true nature, our divine essence, the way in which we abandon ourselves. Our personalities draw upon the capacities of our inborn temperament to develop defenses and compensations for where we have been hurt in childhood. In order to survive whatever difficulties we encountered at that time, we unwittingly mastered a limited repertoire of strategies, self-images, and behaviors that allowed us to cope with and survive in our early environment. Each of us, therefore, has become an expert at a particular form of coping, which, if used excessively, also becomes the core of the dysfunctional area of our personalities. So that's where I wanted to start. And then I was going to throw it to you, Care. What does that bring up for you? Or what do you want to tell us?
Well, I want to say I love that you read that. That was a wonderful reminder, because for me, the Enneagram, the easiest way to talk about it is that it is about our coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I got into it was in 2003, I had what I now know was a spiritual crisis. And to come out of that, I started listening to a bunch of stuff like Carolyn Mace's audio programs and reading Enneagram books. They were on my shelf already because my mom had gotten into it in years before. And I've told you guys outside of this, my mom is like the Bible salesman for the Enneagram. She goes around handing out Enneagram books to anybody whose attention she can get about it, because she finds it so helpful. So it really helped me, because when I crashed and burned, what was failing me was my coping mechanisms. Mm-hmm. It was time to move on. So I'm a 9, which is generally branded as the peacemaker. Mm-hmm. And one of the dangers there is that you settle for peace at any price. Meaning for me, and it's different for everybody. I do want to stress that but peace at any price is a pretty common. You can get a smile on a nine's face if you say that phrase because it resonates.
Right.
And so for me, yeah, like just conflict and any kind of like anger coming out of anybody else, just completely stressed me out, and I just couldn't handle it. And so an unhealthy way to deal with that is to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately, when my life took a turn where I knew like it was time to find my adult spirituality, I was crashing, my coping mechanisms weren't working anymore. I started reading really in depth the Blue Book, the Blue Bible, and it helped show me the way to things that I could recognize in myself and then improve on
Right.
to
Right.
grow.
One of the things I love about the book is that once you find your basic type, and like Carrie was saying, it's really dense. I mean, you have triads, your tri-type, and then you have your wings, and I mean, it's really super in depth. So it is not simple by any means. You are not boxed in. You are not labeled. A lot of people are, Carrie was saying before we started, are turned off by personality stuff because they feel like it boxes them in. And I feel like the Enneagram does the exact opposite. But one of the things that it does is once you recognize your basic type, it gives you this like graph, and it says, here's what nines look like at their healthiest. And here's what average nines look like. And here's what nines look like when they start to really become unhealthy and devolve. And I just looked up. So it says that your type 9, your basic desire is to maintain the inner stability and peace of mind. And your super ego message is you are good or okay as long as those around you are good or okay. Right?
Yes, that's really interesting. So, over the years, I've learned that twos are the classic codependent type. That doesn't mean that all twos are codependent,
Yeah.
but it lends itself to that. But nines have a ton of that in them too. So, what you just said, as long as others are okay. So, one
Yes.
thing that frustrates, like my husband and friends sometimes, and I've gotten better at it. I can ask Mary about that in a minute, but is being unable to make decisions. So,
Yeah.
where do you guys want to go for dinner? I don't know. Wherever you want to go. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And years before, I tried to explain to my husband, who's a one, he was like, that
Oh,
drives me crazy because I know you have an opinion. You're just not sharing it. And I was like, no, I actually am happier if you're happy. So I will go where you go so that I can feel at ease. And that's part of the peace at any price. And
yeah.
I've done a lot of growth work around that. And now I can say, I'd really love Mexican tonight. And then he'll be like, yeah, I don't want Mexican. And so then we work it out. But the point is like, I can at least state that. And I mean, I really couldn't do that 20 years ago. That's not how I rolled.
I have talked to nines who have said that they actually really believe they don't have an opinion. Like it's
Yeah.
so buried, like they've been so peace at any price for so long that they've totally lost touch with what their preferences are. And a lot of their work is uncovering, like, what do I want to eat tonight? Like, what is my opinion? Mary's a
So
type 4.
I'm a type 4, and what I wanted to kind of say, Lydia mentioned that there are triads, and so on today's episode, we have one. Each one of us represents one of the triads. Each one of the triads, and so I, as a type 4, am representing the heart triad, and Carrie was as representing the gut triad, and Lydia represents as a type the thought or head triad.
Yeah, the way I think of that is that, and you, Mary, you speak to this if this is how what you say, but my understanding of the different types, right? So there are 9 types total, 3 in each of the triads, and
Right.
each of us has one number in a triad. So I'm actually a 529. But we're going to stick with basic types for today. But
Yeah.
I always,
Let's keep it simple.
yeah. But I always say that this is how I explain the triads. If you are in the cerebral or thought triad like I am, what it means is when you need to solve a problem, when something comes before you, when a question comes before you, your first instinct is to go to thought. That so I think the answer. And Carrie, as part of the instinctual triad, she goes with a gut feeling, like they are very instinctual. And Mary is the heart. So she goes to how she feels about the situation for an answer. And y'all, I had this idea and I never knew where it was going to come out. I told my husband about it. I was like, I'm going to do a talk on it. I don't know where it's going to come from, but I know this is purposeful and I feel like this is the moment. So I'm going to tell you. Okay. So what I believe, okay, it's your superpower. Okay. So so for the instinctual triad, your superpower would be like if you were walking down the street or up the street because it's on a hill and a baby carriage started coming down, you would literally stick your hand out at exactly the right moment and catch that baby carriage. Like that is what would happen because your instincts are so good. Mary's superpower is her heart and the way that she sees. She is able to literally see people's hearts because that's the lens through which she views the world. And I am able to put together thoughts of all different kinds and simulate all kinds of different information and like a supercomputer come up with, oh yeah, I read this book, this book, this book. They all said this, this, and this, and then put them all together. So each of us really is our superpower, but there's a volume button. Yeah. Okay. Knob. There's a volume knob. So your superpower can be turned up a little too high or down a little too low. And what you want to do is on that middle, right?
Well, yeah. One of the things that I think is really helpful and important about the Enneagram is that it gives us direction. And so once you figure out your type and really the key to figuring it out, Carrie mentioned when she was talking about her early days of learning about the Enneagram, but the key to figuring it out is it actually punches you in the gut when you read it. It's the one that you don't want to be.
It's the one you don't want to be.
Yeah.
But I have to say though, the one I didn't want to be was a 2, and it is in my triad. So forever I've taken 2 classes. I was trying to figure it out. Am I a 2? Am I a 5? Am I a 2? Am I a 5? And I just I couldn't get to it because I've taken a test, which y'all will give you a link to because I think it's the Rizzo Hudson test, the people that wrote this textbook. And it is a great, window into it. So for me, the one I really didn't want to be was a 2, but I really have come to see that yes, 2, I have a heavy tendency toward 2, and I certainly did early, but 5 is my type. What do you think about that?
That could have to do something with your being in the thought.
Yes, that's what my instructor said.
Because mine was a punch in the gut, and I'm in the feeling triad. But I wanted to say the other reason why I love the Enneagram is because it gives us direction. And so I thought, since Carrie has already told us about being a 9, then maybe she can talk more about this idea of integration and disintegration and guidance that the Enneagram gives each of the types.
I can. In fact, Lydia, does 5 disintegrate to 2? That was going to be my question.
5 disintegrates to 7s.
Okay.
So and that is part of how I figured out that I was a 5. Number one, my instructor said exactly what Mary said. The fact that you're going back and forth like between 2 classes and can't decide is telling you that you're in the thought triad. So 5 is it. But
that's great.
But the other way that I figured it out was through the disintegration. I definitely disintegrate to a 7. So fun time, like if Lydia is like fun time Lydia, it means I'm It means I've
It's a
It's
red
not
flag.
good.
it's not good. It means I'm devolving and I'm
Yeah.
really using my coping strategies and my essence is getting covered up. And I integrate
Yeah.
into an 8, which is very true. Like I like the boss. So
Gotcha. Well, I told Mary I've got to memorize the disintegrations and integrations because I can never remember them except for me because it's really easy in the middle of the round clock face. It's
yes.
3, 6, and 9, and it's a perfectly equilateral triangle. So, what I learned on my journey though is that so I disintegrate to 6, and so whichever
Oh,
direction you disintegrate to, when you're feeling unhealthy, look at the unhealthy side of that. So
yes.
with an unhealthy 6, there's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of loss of control or feelings of loss of control. And that's really where I was. And then my direction of growth for our listeners, when you're growing and understanding and integrating this work, you grow in the direction of integration, which for me is a 3. So I want to look at the healthy end of the 3 to see kind of how I'm doing, if I'm kind of lining up with that. And someone I work closely with on dreams paid me a compliment. I told him I was a 9, and he just looked at me and he was like, you don't seem like a 9. I really see
Ah,
that healthy 3 energy, like go, which for me is like doing things for yourself, just growth, deciding that you deserve to learn. I kind of now I ask for what I want. Like if I want to give a talk at a conference with some of my colleagues in this work, I just ask, which again, way back, that was not going to happen. I would stand in the corner and just huddle and wait for somebody to notice me.
yeah, yeah.
So I have grown, and it's really really good, and I'm inspired to look at that
It's
again.
really kind of cool too because Carrie and I've known each other a little over 10 years, and
Mhm.
I've seen that transformation because when I first met her, she was not really doing a professional job. And now she's so um, the work that she's doing is so important, and she does have a larger platform that she's working with, and so it's really been cool to kind of see that growth. And I think, I think that what the Enneagram does for all of us is it helps give us that direction that you're talking about.
Just for our listeners, I will say that, what you've heard, and, whether you've heard us kind of toss around the Enneagram, and I'll say something about Mary being a 4 or me being a 5, or that being a 5 thing. And so that's one of the reasons why we were inspired to do today, and to talk about the Enneagram today. And I think that, one of the reasons why, first of all, one of my favorite sayings is nothing's the Bible, not even the Bible. And so and that is that really everything is a tool. And their fingers pointing at the moon. And if you look at the finger, you can't see the moon. So it's not about the Enneagram being the best thing ever or the answer to everything. It's about what the Enneagram is pointing you toward within yourself. Okay, so Mary, tell us about the 4. What does it mean to be a 4?
Well, the 4 is sort of defined as the artist or romantic. And one of the defining factors of the 4 is the need to stand out or be unique. And whenever I went to a training by a friend named Terry Bailey, she was teaching the Enneagram, and she had us breaking up in groups. And I was just sitting there, and she came over, and I said, I just don't know what type I am. And she kind of stood there for a minute, and she looked at me and she said, Mary, just look at your hair.
Yeah.
And my hair was like on top of my head. I mean, if you've seen me, my hair is always a little crazy, but my hair was on top of my head and just like going in every direction possible. And I sat with that for a minute, and I was like, you think I'm a 4? And she just nodded and smiled.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because one of the things about the Enneagram is really the only person that can define that is the person who is themselves.
Yeah, the only person that can definitively find it, because it's about your inner life. And remember, we said there's areas of disintegration. So if depending on if I'm integrated or disintegrated, I might look like another number to you because of that, but I will say that as you get to know, so Mary, who is my best friend, I consider my best friend, so she's a 4, and I feel like I can pick out 4s from a mile away. Like literally, I can pick out a 4 a mile away. Number one, they are dressed like nobody else. And what's interesting is that so this is what happened for Mary and I. So I'm type 5, I'm cerebral, and you have a wing, which is a number that is adjacent to you. So for me, it would either be a 6, I would either be a 5 with a 6 wing or a 5 with a 4 wing. And I'm a 5 with a 4 wing. And so I, like to dress differently. I do all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that Mary and I realized, like a couple months ago, we were having a conversation. And one of the things that I've been really working on is getting out of my head, dropping down from my head into my body, feeling emotions, that sort of thing. I've been really, putting time and effort and energy into that. And so we're having a discussion, and she brings up a topic that, is kind of contentious. We disagree on it, but we, love and respect each other. But really the whole world, half disagree, half agree. And she starts talking, and I start talking really, really fast. And I'm, getting worked up. And Mary very calmly said, I feel like you may be getting triggered right now. And what happened was she was acting, which is like the total opposite of our friendship. Because I'm the one that goes, I feel like your feelings might be turned up a little bit. But she was the one that told me that my feelings were turned up. So she was acting, she was in the more cerebral space saying, hey, let's calm down here,
It shows a lot of growth for me, because in the past I would have had a reaction too. And I mean, I often do. My relationship with Lydia is a little gentler sometimes than in some of my other relationships. But, well, the 4 is actually self-aware. Actually, we spend a lot of time internal dialoguing. And so there's a lot of self-awareness about what I said or what I did, and even self-improvement, and but also sensitivity and reserved. So those are some of the other defining characteristics of a 4. But one of the things, so the integration and disintegration, one of the things that I have just recently kind of realized is that self-improvement and but also sensitivity and reserved. So those are some of the other defining characteristics of a 4. But one of the things, so the integration and disintegration, one of the things that I have just recently kind of realized is that I integrate to a 1, which is, or a 4 integrates to a 1, which means 1 is, Carrie, what is, because I know your mom's a 1. What is the defining characteristics of a 1, or what's their?
Oh, yeah. So 1s view the world as it should be according to them. And when they see things out of place according to their worldview, they often correct others or try to control others in different ways. Everybody's different. But like if you think that people should always behave in a certain way at a dinner party, as a 1 who's maybe kind of average, you might want to go around and say your opinion about how everyone's behaving. as a one. And the we haven't talked about the quote sin, as it's called, of each
Yeah.
type, but it's like the gift that's also the curse.
Yes.
So the sin of the one is anger,
Yeah.
righteous anger. And so ones are frustrated because the world is not as it should be according to their own view of the world. And usually the childhood situation for that, they say, is that whatever your household situation was growing up, your way of coping became looking at that and saying, this is not right. This is not as it should be.
It should be
kind of how
different.
that gets started. Yeah.
And Rizzo
So-
Hudson says the type one is the reformer, the teacher, the activist, the crusader, the moralist, the perfectionist, the organizer. That's the
Perfectionist. And so
Mhm.
we would look at, for you, Mary, the unhealthy side of that. You probably
Well,
are going to say some more of that.
So actually, a one is the way that I go for growth.
oh
And
yeah.
Oh,
So the growth
That's
for
right.
me is when things should be done a certain way. I mean, something I read the other day was that the four likes to wait for inspiration to hit.
Mhm.
And that is very true for me, especially since I've sort of woken up to this spiritual journey to be intentional about following inspiration. But I can get stuck in waiting and not doing. And so what a one does is organize, they plan, they have step-by-step plans where they're going to actually get things done. And so the more organized I am, the more structured I am, the more disciplined I am, the more effective I am in my creative pursuits.
Yeah, and I'll read from the text says, so like the healthy one. So ones reinforce their self-image by trying to live their lives in accordance with their consciences. Conscience and with reason. They are highly ethical and self-disciplined and possess a strong sense of purpose and conviction. Truthful and articulate, they teach by example, putting aside personal desires for the greater good. So that, is you, Mary, when you are at your healthiest, right?
Right. And so for me, that is such important information because I learned to do some of this stuff when I was in college before I learned anything about, conscious living or, spiritual journeying.
Yeah, right.
But so I figured it out on my own. And I figured out that if I had a calendar or, made sure I wrote down lists and did these organizational kinds of things, then it would actually help me get things done and be successful. But the Enneagram is like what Lydia's reading from is this Bible of information that gives us direction. And so it's so nice, such a nice tool to be able to use that. So Lydia, can we hear about the 5? What it means to be a 5 and in the thinking triad?
Yes, we can. But first I want Carrie. I think Carrie had a response. Did you have a response, Kara, to that?
Well, yeah, I would love to say, Mary, just a quick comment on what you said about how you taught yourself some skills in college, which is great. But to touch back on what you read at the beginning, Lydia, the integration of psychology and spirituality, I won't go down the rabbit hole here, but for me, I'm a 9. I'm a P on the Myers-Briggs, and I'm undiagnosed ADD. So organization and procrastination have been challenges for me too. And what has helped me, and this ties in with what you were saying, Mary, is the psychology of why I do that. And so I could try to learn some skills like Mary did in college, but the Enneagram is just such a great tool to help you get to the bottom of why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that's just another important piece of it.
That's right.
Yes.
So
yes.
It's
what are your underlying motivations?
It's
yes,
it's the recognition too that everybody in childhood had a moment where they became fearful. And some people believe that it's from the moment of birth, which I have kind of had a tendency toward myself. But it's, there's a moment of fear in early childhood, 0 to 7, and you start going, I need to keep myself safe. How do I keep myself safe when I feel this fear? And so you develop these coping strategies. And that is what makes your personality, right? And it covers up your essence. But essentially, when you get in touch with your coping strategies, and you begin to understand, oh, that's me, trying to protect myself and act in the opposite way, you become the most healthy version of your personality, and your personality is able to shine in the world, which it should. Our ego should be in service to our essence. Our personality should be in service to our essence. And I think that the Enneagram is a great tool for that. So, type 5, my basic fear is of being helpless, useless, and incapable. And my basic desire is to be capable and competent. And my super ego message is, you are good or okay if you have mastered something. And the way that this played out for me, and is so true, is I spent 10 to 12 years doing self-study on spirituality, reading all kinds of spiritual books. And I call it my kitchen. I would just read in my kitchen. I'd first on my patio, then on my kitchen. And I would use these tools, and I was transforming, and I would go out, and I worked at, I was managing a law firm, and one of the paralegals who sat by me, she would talk about her stuff, and I would sit and I would be able to help her because of all of the tools. And I would help people on the street. And my husband was like, if only there was a way you could make money at this, whatever. But I kept thinking, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to go and do this. I need to be an expert. I need to make sure that I'm an expert. And now that I've been, quote unquote, labeled an expert through my job, and now I'm, the head of a spiritual community. So now I feel comfortable to join the world. But before that, I'm not comfortable joining the world. And so what you do with that uncomfortableness is you either totally retreat into yourself and get smaller and smaller, and you minimize your needs. And you're very much, you don't tread on me. I don't tread on you. I shouldn't use the word tread because that's a political thing right now. Erase that. But I want you to leave me alone. And don't ask me for things, and I'm not going to ask you for anything, and so it's like I'm constantly worried that the world and other people are going to overwhelm me. And so, so this is what, an unhealthy 5 is. And so when I had my children, it was this like master's course in figuring out how to integrate into the healthiest version of myself, because now all of a sudden I had these little people that needed me, 2 boys, 16 months apart. One had special needs. And so I, was completely overwhelmed by other people's needs, which is my core fear. So I got to face that core fear, that thing that says you're not enough, Wow. And so I integrate to a type 8, and type 8s are very in charge, and they're very principled, and they are
Stand
great
up
leaders.
For the little guy.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Yeah. I had it listed, but the healthiest version of 5s is 5s let go of the belief that they are separate from the environment and an outside observer, and thus are able to confidently engage in life. They also paradoxically achieve their basic desire to be capable and confident and able to live in the world. They then become clear-minded, knowing, profound, and compassionate. And what happens for me is if a problem arises, right? So a problem comes around, I think, okay, all I need to do is figure it out. If I just can figure it out, then I'll be okay. So I retreat into my mind to go, okay, how do I work this out? How do I figure it out? And then I'll feel safe so if I'm faced with anything like that, and recently I had something come up around childhood stuff that I didn't remember, and all of a sudden I was starting to have these memories, and I went, okay, I just need to figure it out, and if I figured it out, I'll be okay. And so I knew that I was going to that unhealthy version of a 5 rather than the healthier part of me.
I think sometimes Lydia is a good example of not sort of knowing which type you are, and not presenting in the way that the type reads in the book, because as her good friend, there's no way I would have pegged her as a 5.
I know.
And also another example of why I'm not capable of telling somebody else what their type is. I mean, obviously helping to process these things and helping people get to that place. We can do that ultimately up to the person.
I love that you brought that up, because one of our friends, her husband is a 5, and I've used that as an example because we seem as different as two people can possibly be. And 5s are supposed to be the shyest version, the shyest number. And the reality is, if you define shy as in, going inward and not, because so if I definitely, like, in adolescence, early 20s, if we were all sitting around a campfire, right, having a conversation, I was not having the conversation. I was watching everybody have the conversation and thinking about the conversation. Do you see what I mean? So I have a tendency to think the experience, not have the experience. But I don't appear like that from the outside. So it's very true that nobody can type you.
So I'm wondering now what, Carrie, I have a question for you. I'm wondering if you could summarize or give anybody any sort of advice on where to go to learn more about the Enneagram and find out, like, basically, is there any simple tips that you have to help somebody understand more of this?
Sure. And I know you guys have some resources too, but the Enneagram Institute is where you can go to learn more about Russ Hudson's work. Don Riso has moved on to another dimension, even though he co-authored the blue book is called The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Riso and Russ Hudson. I want to highlight again what you said about nobody being able to type us. It's like when we've talked about dream work before, someone can have an observation, and if you get that aha, that gut reaction, whether you're reading an Enneagram book or Mary, you tell me I'm a 9, but something about 9s and it really strikes me, then that's a clue to definitely go read more. I will say, as far as tests, I was a dead ringer. I mean, my mom pegged me. She's really good at that, though. She's really good at pegging people. But then I read everything and listened to everything and was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I even took a test and it was super easy to identify me, but it's not always easy. So don't give up. There are different levels of help, like Lydia said. Sometimes, like when my husband was trying to figure out what he is, he came up with 1, 3, and 8. Which are very different. But when you read a little bit about each one, you can see how some of the energies are similar and why that person might think that they were one of the other 2 types that's not their core type. So, just keep reading, look for that gut reaction if your test is inconclusive.
Yeah. I tell everybody, look, if you get this Rizzo Hudson text, you are going to be so overwhelmed because it is so dense and has so much information. Each chapter does have a little test in front of it. So like type 1, before it starts the chapter, it gives you a little test so that you can rate your numbers. And ultimately, I've done one on every one of them. But what I always suggest people do is actually, and it's through the Enneagram Institute, I believe. It's the Rizzo Hudson Enneagram test. And it's like $7 or $12, but it was the best $12 or $7 I've ever spent because it gave me back some of my top. It ordered them, based on my answers. So you get that, and then you look at it, and it gives you, the first 3 or 4, it actually goes into detail into those. So you can look at those and it kind of narrows it down for you. So I always suggest that people take the test first. And it's Rizzo Hudson Enneagram test. You can even just Google that, Rizzo Hudson, but make sure that you don't get one of the ads. Make sure it's the Rizzo Hudson test, because that's the one that I really think.
Lydia, so that one ranks all 9 types for you. Is that right? I think I've done that before.
Yes.
So we should mention also, I think that the circle, and so I tend to use the word God a lot for listeners, this spirit, divine, whatever works for you. But the 9 types are supposed to represent the face of God and wholeness. It's a mandala.
Yes.
And so we all have a little bit of all of it in us. And so
that's right.
I'm glad you brought that test up, because it can, it ranks our most dominant ones, which help us to find direction, like Mary said. But then it's good to know that we are each a different mixture, a different recipe of all of this stuff.
That's
each one of us is unique.
Yes. And we have different bits of all of us in us. And
everybody has a little 4.
That's right.
Yeah.
and when you're integrated, you do have, perfect bits of all of them. You know what I mean? At our, when we're at our Christ consciousness or Buddha self, we really represent, like, I love how you said the face of God. That's awesome. You guys, I love talking about the Enneagram. And Carrie, thank you so much again for joining us. It's just so seamless talking to you. And the 3 of us have the best time. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see what happens next.